Cuthbert cooks, welcome back. Eidmubarak, second day of Eid here in the United Arab Emirates in the house down in Al Basha too. So Ramadan has come to an end and now we're into the second day of Eid celebrations that are happening across not only our country but across the whole Islamic world. So everyone's on a bit of a holiday, but we're all still at home staying safe, so I hope you're all safe as well, and I hope you're able to get some time with your families as well, and I hope everyone's safe. I thought today we'd do a mixture of techniques. When I was in the hotels, I used to work in the Garde Manger and the coal kitchen, and when I went from Melbourne over to the UK and worked in the hotel kitchens in the UK, I really enjoyed making terrines. And terrines are quite special because, you know, back then the Garde Manger used to do more than just making a couple of salads. The Garde Manger part of the kitchen was an important role. He'd do preparation for the saucier, he'd look after the fish, he'd look after the meat, he'd also do all the charcuterie as well. So I mean, living in our part of the world is a bit difficult to do terrines and pâtés as they would traditionally be made, especially with the lack of use of the special chicken. So what we're going to do a little chicken and veal terrine, a little bit like a house pâté, but I'm going to also try and put in some veal bacon or veal rashers that are locally made here in the UAE, substitute. It gives a little bit of extra fat because we need the fat into the terrine. So I'm going to use chicken and veal in equal parts. I'm also going to add in a few little chicken livers, and then we're going to blend in the veal, and then I'm going to sweeten it up, and a little garnish. I'm going to have a little bit of dried cranberries here. We're going to put in some garlic and onions, of course. I've got some pistachios soaking because I want to peel them and get them off so they're nice and green, and we're going to put those in whole through the terrine later on. But the first thing we're going to do is start to look at the meat. And to prepare the meat, we're going to trim it, and then we're going to seal it off quickly. We're going to season it up in a pan, then we're going to marinate it overnight until we come back, and then we're going to blend it all up. We could actually use a mincer. I'm going to use a robo-coupe as well, so we're going to put it through one shot of the fine mincing blade, and then we're going to finish it off in the robo-coupe, into the food processor, and then we're going to add a little touch of cream just to lighten it up, to make sure that it keeps nice and smooth, because without the additional fat from the special chicken, we may find it gets a little bit dry. So we're going to try and add a little bit of cream as well into it. We're going to flavour it with some orange zest, and then the cranberries and pistachios will give a little bit of a nice flavour. So the first thing we do is we take our chicken livers, and I've trimmed these all up already. I've had a look at them. I've got the veins out of them, and I want to get some of the blood out. So what we do there is just a typical old style thing. We're going to macerate them in a little bit of milk, and we're just going to soak them in milk, and this just helps draw out some of the impurities. Some of the blood as well will come out in the milk, and then tomorrow, when we're ready, after we've marinated everything, we're going to add those we're going to strain them off, and we're going to add those into the meat mixture as well. So that's the livers all done. We'll set them aside. We're going to pop them into the fridge, and then we're going to have them nicely soaked in the milk. I was looking for some veal down at the local supermarket. I wanted some veal loin or some something with a bit of fat in it, but couldn't get anything, so it's a bit of lean tenderloin. So what I'm going to do, a little bit similar, just like the beef fillet we did, we're going to trim off the sinew, because we don't want the sinew, because that one just won't go into our terrine well, so we just trim it off. Pretty much the same techniques as we use for the beef fillet. We get the sinew off. Now if there's a little bit of fat left on here, I'm going to leave the fat in because I want to have that actually into the terrine, and as we mince it, that'll also get absorbed into the farce, into the mixture, and we'll be able to keep that as part of the moistening as well, with that extra little bit of veal fat. So it's a very simple, you know, really not trimming off too much. I've got a couple of bits of sinew I want to cut off here. The rest I'm going to leave because it's a nice little bit of veal fat. This is a milk-fed veal from Holland. That's why it's nice, and that's why the colour is so pale. So a milk fed one, so it's nice and young. So we just trim off that little bit of the chain. Not too much wastage. Remember, young chefs, what we said about the wastage, and we're going to put that aside, and we're going to put that into the braising pan, or into the pan as we seal this off, because we're not going to cook it. We're going to get the meat trimmed up. We're going to cut the chicken breasts up as well, and then what we're going to do, we're just going to seal them off a little bit. It just helps in the cooking process. Yeah, so we're going to cut it up into strips. This is just taking that sinew off the top of the veal fillet. A little bit of an expensive item, agreed. Yeah, to use in a terrine. But as I wanted to really make a terrine for you today, I've said, okay, I'll sacrifice a little bit of extra cash and just do a nice lean piece of veal. Normally we'd want to try and keep veal for a prime cut, like a nice schnitzel or a nice veal fillet, but we will pop it in a terrine today. If we had some topside, would have been great. Would have loved a little bit of topside or cushion of veal as well. So I've just trimmed that lightly, not wasting too much of our meat. Yeah, I want to keep as much on there as possible. So that's our veal. So our veal's done. Pop the trimmings there. We then have our chicken breasts. Now these are already pre-cleaned. If there's any little hard bits, you know, little bits of gristle that sometimes you find on chicken breast, just have a little poke around with your finger there. Make sure that there's no little bones or little bits of extra gristle. I just move these out of the way so we get a better view. And all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut the chicken into strips, big and thick. Yeah. If they're smaller breasts, just cut them in half. Cut this one into 3. So that's the chicken ready to go. I've got the same thing with the veal. I'm just going to wash my hands. I want to keep my hands nice and clean. Got a funny old day over here in the UAE today. It rained yesterday, middle of May, and it poured down with rain. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, so it's looking pretty grey outside as well. And then with the veal, we're just going to take the veal and we're going to cut the veal into pieces as well, because this helps the veal actually go through the mincing machine later. And also, as we cook off the veal, while we seal it off, we just want to make sure that we get all the flavours marinating together, because we are going to marinate this overnight. So there's the veal. We've done the chicken. We've got the chicken livers, which we're going to add tomorrow. Yeah, and that's the first part of our terrine preparation. Yeah. Now we're going to move boards, and we're going to start looking at the. We're going to do a little bit of work on the vegetables now. Just going to wash off my knives, and then we're going to. We're going to peel our onions. We're going to slice those up. We've got a little bit of garlic there as well. I've got my sink. I'm just drying my knife off camera. Here I am, back again. So I'll just pop these out of the way. So I've got a little red onion here. Want quite a bit of flavour into the terrine with the onion. So we just slowly peel that off. Pop that in my compost compartment. Just peel our little red onions, all the way from India, these ones. It's quite pungent, yeah, quite a strong flavoured onion as well. So this is going to go into the terrine as well. And then we just slice him up, big thick slices, nice big chunks, because we're going to blend it and we're also going to mince it. Then our good old garlic. I got the overhead fan on, so my garlic skins are flying away everywhere. But I did enjoy working in the Garde Manger. I used to work in the Garde Manger in Melbourne as well, when I was at the Hilton hotels. Then, as I said, went over to the UK, did some time in the UK, in the Hilton hotels at the Gatwick Airport. Worked with a great Garde Manger chef from Austria, a guy called Gerhard Freidwanger. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Oh, Gerhard, he used to have 2 colours of clogs, white ones and black ones. So we used to wait to see what sort of mood he was in by the colour of his clogs that he'd wear. If he had his white clogs on, we knew everything was good. If he came with the black clogs on, we knew that we were in for it, so we all had to get the heads down and we're all on our best behaviour, or else we'd be getting a roasting from Gerhard. He would always he'd always be a little bit excited if he had his black ones on. One of my mates, Dave, who I worked with in Melbourne, Hilton, also, he was in the Garde Manger. He used to come in as a casual. Dave Richardson, he's back home in Melbourne. We kept in touch all these years, and Dave come over to the UK after I went there as well. Dave's a great bloke. He's back home in Melbourne, and he was one of the ones that sort of encouraged me to get out of Melbourne as well. He said, because he always said that travel's the best thing, so I have Dave to thank as well for inspiring me to get off my bum and go overseas. So we've got garlic. We're going to chop the garlic up. Dave used to work in the Garde Manger part-time. Then when he come over to Gatwick with us, shared a house for a while, and then he used to he worked in the kitchens as well in Gatwick. So we've got our garlic, we've got our onion. Let's pop all this over here. In my pestle and mortar, I've done a little combination of cumin seeds, coriander seeds, white pepper, a little bit of pink peppercorns as well, a bit of black pepper, because I want to try and give this some extra flavour as well from especially from the fennel seeds that have gone in there as well. That'll give the terrine a little extra flavour, and coupled with the sweetness of the cranberries and a little bit of the orange, we should be good. Still got my pistachios soaking there. Going to turn on our beautiful pan here. Going to get him nice and hot. Good old Rama olive oil again. Our Tunisian oil, so we get the old Rama olive oil into the pan. Quite a good healthy amount of oil. We want to seal nicely off the chicken and the veal. Now remember, we're not going to cook it, we're just going to seal it. So we don't want to be, we don't want it overcooking when we actually put it in the oven. Yeah. So that's the onions, garlic, veal, chicken. After we've sauteed everything off, we're going to rest overnight the veal and the chicken mixture, along with those herbs and the flavours, to get some really great flavour in our terrine. Now, to help the terrine, I'm just going to add. So I said I got about half a kilo of each, half a kilo of veal, half a kilo of chicken. I'm going to add, traditionally use about 200-250 grams of special chicken, also inside your terrine, instead of such lean meat, or you'd put a little bit of special chicken fat in there. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a little bit of veal bacon, just going to roughly chop that, because that does have an element of fat in it. This is made from a little top side, by the looks of things, of veal. And then the rest of this veal, we're going to line our terrine mould. Yeah. So we're going to line our terrine mould with the rest of the veal rashers, to make sure that we get some nice flavour as the terrine cooks, and it's a traditional wrapping for the terrine as well. So we've got our pan getting hot. I'm just going to do the oranges quickly. Just pop over, wash my hands again. So with the oranges, now when you make a big amount, I mean, we used to make, the UK, we used to make plenty. I mean, we'd make 20, 30, 40 kilo at one time of farce. So we'd make up our terrines or our house pate or pate de maison, in advance, and it would last us, and then we'd vacuum pack them. We had a great sous vide kitchen in Gatwick. Our chef was Patrick John, and Patrick set up a great sous vide kitchen. We were doing sous vide back in, we started that in the mid to late 1988, and we were doing sous vide of salmon, we were doing sous vide cooking of chicken breast with ratatouille, we were preserving stuff in our sous vide, and then we were storing as well. So sous vide's been around quite a while, and we used to do also quite a bit of sous vide cookery with for our banqueting and for our buffet work. So I'm just going to pop my oranges over here. So you can use a zester if you want to, or what I've done, I've just peeled the skin off nice and thin. I'm just going to julienne up the skin, and then I'm going to just chop it by hand because I want a little bit of flavour, a little bit of bite in my terrine. When people eat the terrine, I want them to get a little bit of the taste of this orange just from the skin. You can actually add the juice to it if you want, or you go and squeeze it off and have yourself a glass of vitamin C, or you give it back to the breakfast chef and he can make his juice with it, yeah? Or give it to the sponge monkeys and they can use it in the pastry. Again, nothing's wasted, yeah? So, you know, even though the Garde Manger is only using the skin, what are we going to do with the rest of it? And that, young chefs, is how we keep our food cost in line, and that's how we also learn what to do and how to utilize every single piece of food we've got, yeah? So this is just a very simple julienne, thin as I can get it. Now we go into making a super fine brunoise. Just making sure we don't chop our fingers off. A bit like riding a bike. Once you've learned how to chop and how to do it over many years, you can pretty much guarantee you're not going to cut yourself, but you still got to be careful. Don't want to be bleeding all over your terrine. Side of blood makes some of them pass out. So I've got that nicely diced up. It's going to add a really nice flavour dimension to the terrine, the orange peel. And that's all it is, that's all it takes. Very simple. Now I've got my pan in the back here, is ready. I've got my veal and chicken. I just get me tongs. And basically we're going to toss them off. I've got my favourite thyme here. So we're just going to pop everything into the pan. First we're going to pop in the garlic and onion, just to make sure that that starts to cook a little bit first. Very simple, very simple. Terrines are a little bit scientific as well, like I say about the pastry and that. You got to have your ratios right of lean meat, fat meat, and a fat content. Then it's really good fun. You can just make up whatever you want. If you've got a good trainer that can train you how to make terrines, because even now, as part of competition work, especially in the world competitions, you're looking at people that need terrines. And so, of course, making traditional things is always great, but of course we want to have a look at innovation. We want to look at how people can innovate with terrines. So you'll see a lot of people doing many different things with fish, with chicken, with veal, with duck, on the modern competition circuit as well. So all I'm doing is popping in the veal, putting it all in together. I'm going to pop that veal, those veal rashers or veal bacon in at the end. I've got a bit of colour coming onto the onions and the garlic, which is okay. And as you can see, this pan's really heavy, so it's going to give a nice colour. And we're just going to toss this around. Now normally you would add a little bit of fortified apple or a bit of red grape into this, just to give it a bit of flavour. But it's okay, we'll do away with that because we're in our Islamic country, so we're not going to use it, but you can still get the flavour in. And that's why I'm putting these little sweet cranberries in, because that'll give it an extra kick as well. So we've got a nice high heat. You can see we're just getting a little bit of colour on the meat. We're going to add in now our thyme. So a good half, 3/4 or even a teaspoon of dry thyme goes in. You can use fresh, of course. You can add bay leaves, you can add rosemary. I'm going to put a good solid pinch into my pepper. You know, almost a half tablespoon of those ground herbs and ground seeds that I was doing there. So that's gone in. I'm going to pop in my veal. Sprinkle, give him a toss. Always good to give a toss. Move it round. Again, we're not cooking it, we're just sealing it off. Yeah, we don't want to cook it. Very important. Last but not least, we're going to add in now our lovely little brunoise of orange. So in goes the orange. I've added that one. I will put in a little bit of, I got some little salt flakes here, so we'll just, a little bit of seasoning. There we go. This would be the time that we would add the little fortified apple or the fortified grape into here. But as we're not going to do that, we're just going to toss him up. So we'll toss that off, and then we just put the rest back into this little dish here. And that's going to be popped into the fridge. I'm going to put that in the fridge overnight. Going to cover him up. But before I do that, I'm going to add one more thing just to give it a little bit more flavour. I've got this lovely jus. Look at that. I've got to make squash balls out of that. I'm just going to add a little bit of jus in here as well, just so I don't forget. And I'm actually going to blend that and mix that jus into the terrine mix to give us a little bit of extra flavour, which will be really nice with our terrine. So I'm just going to cover that up now, bit of cling film, pop him in the fridge overnight, let it marinate in its own juices. The juices have started to come out a little bit of out of the veal, a little bit out of the veal rashers as well. So we're just going to cover that up, and we're going to pop that into our fridge. As you can see, he's just got a little bit of orange here, the thyme, it's all there, the juice has started to come down, so we just want to make that nicely marinated, and that's going to look lovely. Fridge is nice and full, cameraman code. Found a spot. Rolling. So then what we do, we finish off our pistachios. So I've got some already out. A little trick here. So they've been soaking in hot water. So we just pop our little pistachios here. Move this out of the way. You know, in the kitchen, young chefs, boring, repetitious jobs, unfortunately, we have to do. Yeah. So every now and again, when you get a good little trick, try and remember it. So I've got the pistachios inside the tablecloth. Make sure they don't jump out. You just run them through the tablecloth. And voila. Helps takes the skin off. Yeah. So then you just pick out the beautiful, how lovely and green these are. Yeah. We're really lucky over in the Middle East. We get beautiful pistachios. You can even get, you know, they're almost fluorescent green when they're peeled. They come out of Iran. So if you ever get the chance, you go down to an Iranian trader, down to the roasters they're called, and you buy beautiful nuts that come out of Iran, walnuts, and of course pistachios. The flavour, unbelievable. So that's just a little trick to help us get the the skins off the pistachios. Some of them have still got the skin on. It's okay. That's all right. Gives a bit of colour to your terrine as well. Again, we just rub that through. Get the rest of the skin off these ones. Pick them out. Yeah, the boring, repetitious jobs are always better to do it with another person so you can have a bit of a chat. I remember when I first went over from Melbourne, I arrived in, I think it was in May, so it was coming into winter. It was coming out of the winter, but it was still freezing cold because it was England. And I remember I was in the Garde Manger and I used to wash the lettuce. Yeah, I never washed so much lettuce in my life, but the water was freezing. And I used to mumble to the other guys in the Garde Manger. I travelled 14,000 miles to wash lettuce. I could have stayed in Melbourne to do that. At least the weather was hotter. But anyway, you learn all the different types of lettuce, you and your lettuce washing machine, and after many months of lettuce washing practice, I was actually allowed to do some other stuff in the Garde Manger. But it was, you know, I felt that the Garde Manger was one of those sections of the kitchen that really gave you an all-round view and knowledge of cookery. You know, things like this, you know, making terrines, cooking, yeah, not just making salads, but then also making all the dressings, doing buffet work, doing platters, roasting meats. Yeah, as I was saying earlier about sous vide, we used to bring in some frozen Brazilian sirloins, and then we used to cook them for about 8 hours, very slowly in our combi oven. And then we would cook them for about 8 hours, about 80–85 degrees. And I used to get the stewards to, when the 8 hours was up, 7 to 8 hours, and I'd get the stewards early morning to bring them out, chill them down in a big ice bucket, big bath of ice. And then they would do that for me. And by the time we came in the morning, you know, at 7–8 o'clock, the beef had been chilled, then we'd chill him down again, and then it was ready for slicing for roast beef. And you couldn't tell the difference, that it was a cheaper frozen cut of beef versus a really high quality one, yeah? And that was what we used to use sous vide for, yeah? Now sous vide is used for all sorts of things, yeah? But originally it was used, one, for preserving food, but also to help you cook lesser quality joints of meat and that sort of stuff to make it more tender. And plus the use of the sous vide packaging to preserve your food as well, so you're able to do a lot of things in advance. I remember we used to start doing our Christmas turkeys in around October time, because we were able to debone the turkeys, and what we would do, we would actually prepare them sous vide. So we would have the breasts separate and the legs separate. We would get Kev the butch to roll the legs up, tie them up for us, and then we would seal them all off, just seal them again, and then in each vacuum bag we'd put a little bit of jus, a bit like we did with the terrine that's now in the fridge, and then we would pop in rosemary, some thyme, and then we would just vacuum pack them and then deep freeze. And then when Christmas time would come along, so that would help us doing our mise en place, yeah, keep ourselves ahead of the game. So when we'd come to do the service, we'd just pull out the amount of breasts and legs that we needed, because we used to pack them up for, I think it was 2 breasts or 4 breasts and to a bag, and 4 legs to a bag. And then we'd cook them sous vide, bring them out, let them rest, yeah, just like roasting. Give them a little finish in the pan with butter and a little bit of garlic and rosemary, just to get some beautiful colour and beautiful extra flavour into them. And then we would slice them off, use the juice from the bag into the jus, and it was a really beautiful beautiful Christmas dinner that we used to do over in the UK, but using sous vide, yeah? So sous vide is not just for fancy restaurants, it's also for your banqueting and also for your, you know, for making your life easier in the kitchen. So there's our little pistachios, there's our cranberries, and that's going to be all ready for when we come back and start blending, and then we're going to mix those in at the last minute.